many of you may already know a little bit about the presentations that I give and the other people here have given, and I appreciate everyone speaking very much from their heart, from their own experience, from many of the things that they've learned along the way. And that's the best teaching. And the best learning is from our own experience. The Buddha said, if you're going to believe something, you don't go by what's written in the books or by what a person says or how eloquent they speak. You learn it from your own experience. And this is something that really drew me to the Buddhist teachings when I was a young fellow, and I wanted to experience things myself. I didn't want to just read about it, what other people experienced. So now I've written a book. But still, go by way of your own experience. I'm going to share with you a little bit about how I look at the big picture of how we practice what the Buddha taught. Chinese Buddhism is unique because Chinese Buddhism appreciates the original teachings of the Buddha. When I first started practicing with Master Jiru, we didn't have Bhikkhu Bodhi's text at that time in the Buddha's words, so we had to, and there was very little, even access to insight wasn't really very populated at that point. We had to learn by going and finding the suttas. Master was helpful in teaching us which suttas to go to. Later I realized that the Buddhist teachings, the original Buddhist suttas, were not available in English until the mid-1990s. There were a few exceptions, of course. Max Muller had translated the Dhammapada way back in 1885. It's a good translation. But most of the Buddhist teachings, not available to us until the mid-90s. Thanks to two very excellent translators who were Native American speakers, native to this country, had gone to Sri Lanka and to Thailand, and had brought the teachings back and were able to teach and share their translations. This is Bhikkhu Bodhi and Thanissaro Bhikkhu, both of whom have visited St. Louis. We're very fortunate when they visit. So the original Buddhist teachings, very, very important. I also enjoy learning about the Chinese system, the Chinese language, the Mahayana teachings. Always the Mahayana teachings have their roots in the original teachings of the Buddha. So I want to share a little bit about these ways of learning how to train the mind so that we can attain our liberation. These I call the 6 pathways. This conceptualization I found through my own practice. So we have these 6 different pathways. I call calmness pathway, clear insight pathway, and kindness pathway. These are the mundane pathways, 3 mundane pathways. And then we have 3 supramundane pathways, or higher pathways. We have a concentration pathway, we have wisdom pathway, and we have commitment pathway. What I mean by commitment, bodhisattva commitment pathway. So these are the 3 supramundane pathways. And there's a foundation at the base and liberation at the top. These are the 6 pathways. So in the calmness pathway, in the Mahayana view, we call this the 9 abiding minds, 9 stages that the person goes through in their calmness that leads them into the 9 stages of concentration, the 8 jhanas, and then final liberation. On the other side, the kindness pathway, we have the 4 Brahma Viharas. We have loving kindness, compassion, altruistic joy, and equanimity. These 4 practices. And they lead to the Bodhisattva commitment. And in the center, we have what's called the clear insight path. And from the Mahayana view, we can see what is called the 6 gates. This is one of the basic teachings of the Mahayana view that lead to the higher level we call the wisdom path. So this is the basic overview of all of the teachings that we can use to help us to gain liberation. So I'm going to talk about the calm pathway, the 9 abiding minds in the Mahayana tradition. We have these 9 pathways. So, just briefly, we say when we first begin to practice, we call this inward abiding. Inward abiding means I realize I cannot solve all of life's problems from the outside. Trying to solve all the problems of the world from the outside is like playing the children's game called whack-a-mole. Do you know this game whack-a-mole? You have a hammer and you hit the mole. As soon as you hit the mole, another mole pops up. You hit the other mole. Always another one pops up. In inward abiding, we realize, oh, it's not possible to solve all of life's problems from the outside. I need to solve some of them here from within. It's how I look at things that matter, and I need to clear up how I'm looking at things. Meditation, maybe that will help. The next stage, called continuous abiding, this means the person has set up a regular practice. I'm going to practice every day, 20 to 30 minutes a day. And maybe at first we can't sit for whole 20 minutes. We sit for 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes in the evening. Many people say, oh, I keep forgetting to practice. This is because we weren't trained when we were children. So I say to them, oh, do you brush your teeth? Oh, of course, I brush my teeth every day. How many times? Oh, at least 2 times. Every time you brush your teeth, you remember to practice. Brushing your teeth we call high probability behavior. Meditation at first is a low probability behavior. We link the 2 of them together. In behavioral terms, we call this the Premack principle. We link the low and the high probability behavior together in practice. So in the morning, brush your teeth, meditate. In the later part of the day, meditate, then brush your teeth. If you do this, then you will develop what we call continuous abiding. Science has studied the mind and the brain, and they've seen what goes on when a person is suffering. The activity of the area of the brain called the amygdala. This amygdala becomes very active. It's connected to a sequence, a triangular sequence called the default mode network. For those people who do neuroscience, it's the posterior cingulate precuneus, and then in the front, the right dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, negative thinking, mind wandering, and then negative feeling. When this amygdala is active, lots of trouble goes on in the mind. Then there is the other side we want to cultivate, called the awareness network, the nucleus accumbens, positive feelings, the anterior cingulate, the being in the present moment, the insula, bodily awareness, and then the left dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, peaceful, positive thinking. So when a person has developed this, not so much of the negative, how long does it take? Well, the functional MRI research shows that continuous abiding, this continuous practice, just in 3 or 4 months of 20 to 30 minutes a day, they begin to see a change from one side to the other. It's not so long. I remember when I first started to practice, this was back in the late 60s, and I asked my teacher, I said, I want to stop suffering, how long will it take? He said, if you practice for 3 or 4 months, 20 to 30 minutes a day, you may notice something. I said, you don't understand. I'm in a hurry. So in that case, 20 years. He was being optimistic. It took longer. So when a person does this continuous abiding, then after a while, the mind enters into what's called calm abiding. Calm abiding is like, I said, going to a concert. And you're in the concert hall, it's very loud. And then you go outside the concert hall, it's very quiet. But you can still hear it. But it's much quieter. So suddenly, this change occurs. You're sitting in meditation. Suddenly, the mind drops into quietness, calmness. You can still hear the thoughts. You can still be aware of that. But it's not so intrusive. It's quiet, calm. Now, I divide this into 3 stages. There's calm abiding. And the calm abiding, I divide into 3 stages. The first stage, I call random calmness. You're sitting in meditation, every once in a while, you suddenly drop into calm abiding, and you don't know how you got there. You keep trying. Oh, I'm going to be calm now. No. All I have is more troublesome thoughts about not being calm. And you keep trying to find the way to get to calm abiding. It's just random when it happens. And then after a while of practice, then you have more consistent calmness. You can enter into that state. Sometimes you get to the place, as soon as you sit down, immediately the mind is calm. We call consistent calmness. The third stage is applied calmness. Applied calmness is you're out in the world, something happens, and instead of the mind jumping to distress, it goes to calm instead. I was away on a trip last summer, and I came home and I hadn't been driving for a few months. Really very much, and on the trip I wasn't driving at all. So I got in my car and I was driving, and then suddenly, bang! I looked. Someone had tried to change lanes and hit my car as I went by. I pulled over, the other person pulled over, and immediately start breathing. Calm the mind. Feel kindness towards the person. Realize that the other person is probably suffering because they hit my car. So when I get out of the car, just a few seconds later, checking, no one is hurt, no problem, no difficulty. Their car was the same model as my car. I said, I will see you at the collision repair shop. So we apply the calmness in real life. Sometimes it's difficult to do that. That's one pathway. Then we go to quietude. That's the other big step that we take in the 6th. And then in step number 8, also a very big step to one-pointedness, the establishment of one-pointedness. not to be confused with full one-pointedness that happens at the higher level of the concentrations. In the kindness pathway, now I'll go to the next level. Kindness pathway, we have the development of loving kindness. And loving kindness, really, we can do it much stronger when we're already in kind, calm abiding, because we can focus the mind now on and redirect our thoughts. We can say to ourselves, first starting with ourselves, then towards someone we love, then towards someone we like, then towards a person who's neutral to us, then towards even a person who's difficult to us, a troublesome person, and then towards all beings everywhere. I have trouble with all beings everywhere, so I add one more group in there. I pick a group of people somewhere in the world that's suffering. Most recently, people in El Paso, people at the border. I focus on that group first, because I know they're suffering a lot. Then I go to all beings everywhere. We might wonder to ourselves, why is it that we would send loving kindness to a difficult person? Well, there are several reasons. Just as Gus said, resentment is like taking poison and waiting for the other person to die. Malachim important. When we have resentment, it causes us more distress than the other person. Second is that if we see that person later, maybe we will feel some kindness towards them, we'll understand that they're suffering, we won't harbor ill will towards them, and when we're with them, they will not reflect back to us that negativity, because they will see some kindness in our eyes, in our voice, and how we speak to them. So less conflict. The third is that sometimes the difficult, troublesome person is our dear relative or our dear loved one. And if we harbor ill will and we become difficult, when we perceive their suffering as something that's attacking us, as self, we take it personally, then we respond back and we make it worse. Ends up in estrangement. Worse, very expensive, troublesome. So by sending loving kindness to those who are difficult people, we can learn to decrease that. Also, in part number 3, sometimes the difficult person is ourselves. We are so critical, so negative towards ourselves, we're doing harm to ourselves with our negative thinking. We need to have loving kindness towards that difficult person that's the self. And the fourth reason why we need to practice in this way is because we come to realize I'm actually somebody else's difficult person. Oh no. I don't want to have them harbor ill will towards me. I hope that they have loving kindness towards me, even though I've been their difficult person. Compassion, loving kindness is wishing that others are happy. Compassion is wanting others not to suffer, and using whatever skill you have to help them suffer less. Altruistic joy is seeing the good qualities in others and being joyful about their good qualities instead of being competitive or jealous. Really encouraging, I call coaching up. People sometimes don't realize that they're angry at their children, they're putting them down instead of coaching them up. Equanimity, keeping things in balance. Not being elated by praise or offended by insult. Not just being happy when we receive what we want, not not being unhappy when we don't receive what we want, not being so encouraged just by success and discouraged by failure, seeking out being comfortable or avoiding being uncomfortable, making all of these things into a better balance, called 8 mundane concerns. So this now leads to the higher pathways. Higher pathway, first pathway of concentration. Concentration is the natural evolution of our calmness, shamatha we say, leads to the jhanas. So there are different stages that the person attains in the jhanas. The 4 form jhanas and the 4 formless jhanas, these are rarefied states where by the second jhana, the mind's thought process has been transformed. We no longer have intrusive, discursive thoughts. I need to say something here, because there are these phrases in Chan and Zen about having no mind, no thought. Master Hui Nong, he talks about this. He says people who think that sitting in the jhanas, sitting in concentration, is having no thought, they are misunderstanding the true nature of the teaching. The mind going blank like that is not what we're after. If that were the case, you would just become like a piece of celery we would put peanut butter on. We need to understand that there are 3 levels of thinking. This is found discussed in the Mahayana tradition in Yogacara. We call the 3 levels of mind consciousness. The first kind of thinking is called discriminating thinking. Discriminating thinking is what Venerable Xiankuan talked about in terms of incorporating what the sense organs are giving us. I come up here, I see a table, I see a chair, I sit in the chair, I don't sit in the table. I know the difference. When I have to do my work, I know what my task is, I do my job. I know that that's different than playing on my phone. I can discriminate one thing from another. I know when I hear a sound, either I know what the sound is or I don't know what it is. This is discriminating thinking. It takes the sense data and it makes sense out of it. When you sit in meditation, you don't need that discriminating mind so much because you're just sitting very still. You don't need to be concerned about what you're seeing or what you're hearing or tasting or smelling because not so important. So then the second level of thinking jumps up, as the other speakers have talked about this. As soon as you sit, then the next level of mind jumps into play. This is called discursive thinking. In discursive thinking, it's like the mind